The author said, knowledge and ignorance. Knowledge, ilm, is the correct realization of that which could be known, whether it were existent or not. Knowledge is the correct realization of that which could be known, whether it were existent or not. To correctly realize that which can be known, that's knowledge. Something could be known and you knew it properly as it is. That's called ilm, knowledge. Whether it were existent or not, it means it doesn't have to be existing for you to have knowledge about it. Knowledge is not limited to what exists. So you could know about Hitler, for example. He doesn't exist now. That is such as realizing the human being to be a living creature that utters. That's true. The human being is a living creature that utters. Or realizing that the world, which is everything other than Allah, has a beginning. That's true. The world has a beginning. So one then has knowledge because he realized it as it is. He perceived that matter with a perception that complies with its reality. Knowledge, ilm, is of two categories: eternal knowledge and created knowledge. Allah's knowledge is an eternal, uncreated knowledge by which He knows all that is known, and no one shares this attribute with Him. The knowledge that comes into existence, the created knowledge, is the knowledge of the creations. That's the second category. Their knowledge is a temporary quality, meaning that it is susceptible to increase and decrease, and it is limited. Allah Ta'ala has the power to wipe your heart of all knowledge. Allah has the power to impart on your heart knowledge without you doing anything. It's a temporary quality, meaning that it's susceptible to increase and decrease, and it's limited. It's not something eternal, and it's not something that's necessarily permanent. Being a temporary quality does not necessitate it's not lasting for more than a single moment. Huh? Yani, just because we called it arad means temporary, something not lasting. And arad is something that doesn't last. That's what it means linguistically. But they use it to refer to the attributes of the creations. Being a temporary quality does not necessitate its not lasting for more than a single moment. In fact, the creation's knowledge is among those qualities that do last for more than a single moment. So it's not necessary to say the word temporary. It's enough to say quality. Knowledge is a quality of the creations. Our created knowledge is one of our qualities. Yes, it's a temporary quality. Like all of our qualities are temporary because we are creations. That doesn't mean that it only lasts for a single moment and then goes away. No. There are things that you have known all of your lives. There was a knowledge that has never departed you. That knowledge lasted for more than a single moment. It's still a temporary quality, although it lasted for years. An example of a quality that does not last for more than a single moment is motion. This is because from one's initial movement of his hand to his final movement, there were actually many movements, one after the other, none of them lasting for more than a single moment. So if I raise my hand and then bring my hand back down, that process of raising my hand and then bringing it back down actually consisted of many motions, many movements, one after the next, one after the next, each motion lasting for a mere moment, being followed by another motion lasting for a mere moment, and then another, until I raise my hand and bring it back down. So motion is it's a temporary quality, and it's the type that doesn't last for more than a single moment. So the qualities of the creations are two types: those that last for a single moment and those that last for more than a single moment. All of them are temporary qualities, but you don't have to use the word temporary. That word temporary is there just to help you understand why it's called arad in Arabic. But you can just call it a quality. Now that you have known what knowledge is, know what ignorance is. Two, ignorance, jahl, is of two types. Mere ignorance, jahl basit, is the sheer lack of knowledge of something, such as our lack of knowledge of what is under the seven earths or what is in the depth of the seas. That's a mere ignorance. You don't know what's in my pocket right now, if there is anything in my pocket at all. The other type, on the other hand, compounded ignorance, jahl murakkab, is the conceiving of something differently from how it is in reality, such as conceiving the human as a creature that neighs. Neigh, that's the sound of a horse. Conceiving the human as a creature that neighs, or believing that the eternal one is a body. How could the eternal one be a body? That's impossible. So if someone believed that the eternal one actually is a body, then he has conceived him differently from his reality. Or the assumption of the philosophers that the world is without beginning. Therefore, ignorance is the absence of knowledge and can only be attributed to the creations. If the subject was never realized from the beginning, that is mere ignorance, just a mere lack of knowledge. If it was realized differently from its reality, that is compounded ignorance. It is called compounded murakkab because there are two types of ignorance involved: ignorance of the conceived issue and ignorance of being ignorant. It is ignorance upon ignorance. And put simply, it is a misconception. So when someone conceives something differently from how it is, that's a misconception. Mere ignorance is not a misconception. Mere ignorance is simply not knowing. Misconception is when a person doesn't know and he doesn't know that he doesn't know. Benefit. The word jahl, ignorance, may be used to refer to inappropriate behavior, such as what came in the hadith, Allahumma a'udhu bika an adilla aw udalla aw azilla aw uzalla aw azlima aw uzlama aw ajhala aw yujhala alay. O Allah, I seek refuge with you from being astray or misled, or from slipping or being tripped, or that I violate or am violated, or that I do jahl, ignorance, or that jahl is done to me. And what came in the Quran, the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam said, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. O Allah, if you do not protect me from the scheme of those women, I would incline towards them and then be among the people of Jahl, ignorance. His saying that if Allah did not protect him, he would be among the ignorant ones means that he would be one of those who did not act according to their knowledge. This is because whoever does not act according to his knowledge is similar to the one who does not have knowledge, or by the ignorant ones, he means the fools. Now that you know what ignorance is, return back to the subject of knowledge and know its divisions. So now we're going to talk about the categories of knowledge, that is, the categories of the created knowledge, the knowledge of the creations. The categories of created knowledge. Created knowledge is of two types: necessary, daruri, and inferred, istidlali. As for the eternal knowledge, it is not described as being necessary or inferred. Necessary knowledge. Linguistically, the daruri, the necessity, is that which is indispensable. It is also that which is understood without thinking, such as one being half of two. And that is the meaning we want for our subject, that the daruri is that which is understood without thinking. Therefore, necessary knowledge, according to its original meaning, is that which is not dependent upon contemplation and inference. It's a knowledge that doesn't need thinking, a knowledge that occurs without the need to think about it. It takes place by the mere directing of the self towards the issue. The human being is compelled by its realization and cannot push it away from himself. This is the knowledge born through the use of sound senses, information narrated by tawatur, and intuition, as shall come. And we can debate or discuss the word intuition when we come to it, inshallah, not now. So knowledge that comes through the sound senses, for example. So let's say, for example, you're sleeping and then your phone rings. So you wake up. Why did you wake up? Because you heard the phone ring. So what happens to you when you hear the phone ring? Some knowledge is born in yourself. A knowledge is born in you that you can't push away. You can't get rid of it. You can't stop yourself from knowing it. What is it that you know? You know that the phone is ringing because you hear it. So there's no way you can get out of knowing that, because once you encountered it by your senses, that knowledge is born in you without any effort on your part. So that's called ilmun daruri. That which is not dependent upon contemplation and inference. It takes place by the mere directing of the self towards the issue. And even the person may not direct himself. He might just be exposed to it without actively trying to expose himself to it. Nevertheless, a knowledge was born in him, a knowledge that he cannot repel from himself. That's called ilmun daruri. So now you know what ilmun daruri means. Necessary knowledge. That's the real meaning of necessary knowledge, what we just talked about. But we use the word necessary knowledge also in another way. Let's see. It says, however, in the religious terminology, so not literally Rather, religiously, in the religious terminology, necessary knowledge is that which is known to both the layman and scholars alike. It is also said to be that which is known to both the ignorant and the knowledgeable. You can say it this way or say it that way. There's a slight difference between the two. That which is known to both laymen and scholars alike. According to that, the scholars know it, and those who are not scholars know it. The laymen, those who are not scholars. That means even the students of knowledge who are not scholars, they are laymen, they know it. And the people who are not even students of knowledge, they know it. The laymen and the scholars know it. It was also said to be that which is known to both the ignorant and the knowledgeable. That means the knowledgeable means the scholars and the students of knowledge. The scholars and the students of knowledge, they know it, and those who are not even students of knowledge, the ignorant ones, they know it too. So there's a slight difference between those two definitions. They lead to the same thing. It might be said that the necessary knowledge of the religion is common religious knowledge, like knowing that the 5 prayers, the fasting of Ramadan, the zakah, and the hajj are all obligatory. And knowing that wine, pig meat, fornication, sodomy, and thievery are all impermissible. Everybody knows that. All the Muslims know that. Even the ignorant ones know that. Whoever denies what is commonly known in the religion blasphemes, unless he was like a new Muslim. What is unknown to many of the common Muslims is not called daruri, necessary, such as the prohibition of shaking the hand of a marriageable woman even without desire. Some people think that you can shake a woman's hand without a barrier and that it's not haram if there was no desire. That's wrong. And the true judgment about that, which is that it's wrong, is unknown to many. The people of knowledge know it, but many of the laymen don't know that that's haram. Denying it, what is not known by necessity, denying it is not blasphemy when unaccompanied by stubbornness. This usage of the term necessary knowledge is religious terminology that was borrowed from an original usage. The original usage is what we started with. Necessary knowledge, that knowledge which is born in yourself and you can't push it away from yourself. So we took that term, necessary knowledge, and borrowed it and used it for a religious purpose and called an amount of religious knowledge necessary knowledge. What would it be then? It would be that knowledge which all the Muslims know it, knowledgeable and ignorant, scholar and layman. These matters are not literally necessary knowledge because they need evidence. We already said necessary knowledge in the literal true sense is something you don't even need to think about to know it. So if you don't need to think about it to know it, that would mean that it doesn't even need evidence. If your phone rang and woke you up, you don't say to yourself, what is the evidence that my phone is ringing right now? Let me formulate the evidence and come to a proper conclusion so that I can verify that my phone is ringing right now. You don't have to do that because you know your phone is ringing because you can hear it. So that knowledge is born in you and you don't need to think about it or get evidence for it. That's real necessary knowledge. In religion, we borrowed that word to use it for a religious purpose. So this usage of the term necessary knowledge is religious terminology that was borrowed from an original usage. These matters are not literally necessary knowledge because they need evidence. The prayer, that there's 5 prayers, there's evidence for that. We wouldn't have known that. We don't know that there's 5 prayers just by thinking about it. We only know it because it came in the Quran and came in the Sunnah. So it has evidence. We wouldn't know that pig meat is haram. We wouldn't know that wine is haram, except unless there was evidence. How come these kuffar out here in the world, they don't believe that it's haram? Because they're not using the evidence that we use. They're not using what we use to prove that it's haram. So they didn't know that. So that knowing that wine is haram, that pig meat is haram, that 5 prayers are obligatory and fasting is obligatory, all the Muslims know that. But in reality, it all needs evidence. So these matters are not literally necessary knowledge because they need evidence, as opposed to what is truly known by necessity. They were called necessary religious knowledge because they are so famous among the Muslims that the Muslim does not have to think about their judgments. It is as if he knows them intuitively. Inferred knowledge. Inferred or concluded knowledge, ilmun istidlali, is that which is dependent upon contemplation and inference. An example is knowing that the world is an event, that the world is something that has a beginning. Arriving at such knowledge is dependent on contemplation about the world and witnessing its changes. The mind goes from its state of changing and arrives at the judgment of it being an event. This is also called acquired knowledge, ilmun iktisabi. So the religious knowledge in a literal sense is this type. It's inferred. It's something that is derived or extracted. It's not something that's known automatically. It's known by looking into the evidence that leads us to that. However, some religious knowledge is so well known that the Muslims don't even have to think about it. So it became similar to necessary knowledge, so they called it necessary knowledge. The known. Knowledge is the attribute of the knowledgeable one, and it pertains to what is known, ma'loom. Knowledge pertains to what is known, what is ma'loom. This means that knowledge is related to what is known, as sight is related to what is seen, and hearing is related to what is heard. Since there are 2 types of knowledge, necessary and inferred, a thing would be known by necessity or known by inference. That's the known, al-ma'loom. Benefit is the existence of God necessarily known or known by inference? There is no difference among our scholars that everything that has a beginning is in need of that which made it occur. It couldn't happen by itself. There must have been one existing before it to make it occur. However, among the scholars are those who said that such knowledge is necessary. It has no need for evidence. Even Imam al-Fakhr said in his book, Al-Ma'alim, that such knowledge is embedded in the nature of the children. He said that if you were to smack a child's face from where he did not see you, you smacked the child in a way that he didn't see you, and then you said that this smack took place without anyone whosoever doing it. The smack happened, but nobody did it. The child will not believe you. In fact, it is embedded in the nature of the animals. For the donkey, if it were to detect the sound of wood snapping, it would become alert because it is embedded in his nature that the occurrence of the sound of snapping wood without wood is impossible. It is embedded in his nature that the occurrence of the sound of snapping wood without wood is impossible. Some said that this knowledge is truly contemplated, not necessary. The knowledge that everything that occurs is in need of one to make it occur. Some said that this is something contemplated, actually, it's not necessary. And this is the correct saying. However, one arrives at that conclusion that the thing that has a beginning must have been preceded by one who made it occur. One arrives at that conclusion by a simple and elementary contemplation, meaning it's really easy. Since it is so obvious that there is a creator, some thought that knowledge of the creator's existence is necessary, and Allah knows best. But the correct saying is that the knowledge of the creator's existence is not necessary. The knowledge, the human beings, the creatures' knowledge that a creator exists is contemplated, not necessary. If it were necessary, it would be something that's just born in him that he doesn't need to think about. And some scholars said that. Some said knowing that a creator exists is necessary. The children know it, the animals know it. But what's correct is that it's not necessary, it's contemplated. Because one thinks about it, and then he comes to the conclusion that there's a creator. However, it's so easy and so obvious that some scholars thought that it was necessary. The precise one said it's not necessary. You do need to think about it, although it's so elementary and easy and obvious that it's as if it's necessary, but it's not. Sometimes the word ilm, knowledge, is used to refer to the ma'loom, the known matter. Such as in the saying of Allah, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. They do not encompass any of his ilm, his knowledge, except that which he willed. The ilm, knowledge, in this verse does not refer to his attribute, the attribute of Allah. Rather, it refers to the known matters. Because if this verse referred to Allah's attribute, then that would actually mean, it would actually be saying that they don't get any of Allah's attribute except what he willed. And that's impossible. So the ilm here is not referring to the attribute of ilm. The ilm here is referring to what is related to the ilm, which is the ma'loom, the known. So it means they do not know any of what is known to Allah. Yani, unknown to them is what is known to Allah, except what Allah willed. The verse means that Allah knows all that is known, and the slaves do not know anything that is known to Allah unless He willed. Imam al-Tahawi said, لأن العلم علمان علم في الخلق موجود وعلم في الخلق مفقود فإنكار العلم الموجود كفر وادعاء العلم المفقود كفر ولا يثبت الإيمان إلا بقبول العلم الموجود وترك طلب العلم المفقود. He said, because there are two types of knowledge. Knowledge that is accessible to the creation and knowledge that is inaccessible to the creation. Denying accessible knowledge is blasphemy, and claiming inaccessible knowledge is blasphemy. Belief is not confirmed until one accepts that there is accessible knowledge and does not seek the inaccessible knowledge. The knowledge that is accessible to the creations is that which Allah made a way for them to acquire it and made it possible for them to know it. The knowledge of the creed, that of the religious rules, and the beneficial knowledge needed for livelihood are all of the type that is accessible to the creations, and acquiring that is praiseworthy. This refers to the information of those fields of knowledge. Acquiring that information is possible and praiseworthy. Furthermore, for the slaves, there are some forbidden types of knowledge. Among them are philosophy, magic, and astrology. Muslim narrated that Zayd ibn Arqam, may Allah accept his deeds, said, I do not say to you all except what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa' wa du'a'in la yusma' wa nafsin la tashba' wa qalbin la yakhsha'. O Allah, certainly I seek refuge with you from knowledge that does not benefit, a supplication unheard, meaning unaccepted, an insatiable self, a self that's never satisfied, and a heart that does not fear God. Denying that there is such knowledge is blasphemy, such as the sophists' denial of the existence of the world. Their creed is that everything is mere imagination, and that's blasphemy. Basically, the belief of sophists is the inspiration for the movie The Matrix, if you've ever seen that movie, where they live in a dream world and things are not really true, they're not really there. That's the creed of sophists. Someone found a way to incorporate it into a movie and make it seem cool. It's blasphemy to say that the world doesn't really exist. That's blasphemy. There is also an ancient group called the Sumniya, also the Sumaniya. They are Hindu philosophers who denied that there is necessary knowledge that does not need contemplation. They said no knowledge is necessary knowledge. All knowledge is contemplated knowledge. We disagree with them about that. This refers to the general attribute of knowledge, not specifically the known information. They deny that such a quality will be confirmed for the slaves. They deny that there's knowledge that's born in slaves without any need to think about it. We disagree with them about that. There's also knowledge that Allah has reserved for himself, and claiming to have that knowledge is blasphemy. Examples are like claiming to know everything. That's blasphemy. Allah is the only one who knows everything. Or claiming for someone else that he knows everything, or like claiming to know when Judgment Day will occur. That's blasphemy. Even trying to know when Judgment Day occurs is blasphemy. Trying to figure out when it will happen is blasphemy. Some of the creations are granted some knowledge of the unseen. None of the creations are granted all of the knowledge of the unseen. A proof for that is the saying of Allah Azza wa Jal, تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. The angels and the soul, that's Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam, descend on that night, the night of Al-Qadr, by the permission of their Lord for the sake of every matter. This means that Allah reveals, Imam An-Nasafi and others said about the interpretation of this verse, أي تنزل من أجل كل أمر قضاه الله لتلك السنة إلى قابل, meaning they descend for the sake of every matter that Allah ordained for that year until the next. This means that Allah gives those angels a limited knowledge of the future, the coming year, so that they can carry out their tasks. However, He did not grant any of them the knowledge of all of the unseen. And that is the meaning of the saying of Allah Azza wa Jal, قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. O Muhammad, say, whoever is in the skies and the earth does not know the unseen. Only Allah knows. Means they don't know all of the unseen. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And we'll stop there, insha'Allah ta'ala.